Almost everyone in America is horrified by the dramatic rise of anti-Semitism, which does not receive the reaction it deserves. I feel, though, I think part of the reason why leaders need to stand up is this is a very, very, very small minority of America. They succeed in having an outsized impact simply because the rest of America thinks they're so idiotic that this can't actually be dangerous or true. And if we do not speak up, they will continue to tell themselves this, and there will be a sense on their side that it's okay to push the boundaries and push the boundaries and push the boundaries. Again, not eviscerating the First Amendment, but just using the First Amendment to say, hey, this is either stupid or hateful. It's very hard to know whether you're an idiot or you're a demigod or you're just purely a hateful person.
You need a higher purpose, and I also think you often need a lower purpose. Like the higher purpose for me...
And what's the lower purpose?
Well, I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us. So that's my lower purpose, and others. But the higher purpose for me was to get this nation to be the preeminent power in the world.
This is paranoid ideation, his deep-rooted conviction he is being persecuted by his inferiors, his detractors, or by powerful ill wishers. Such paranoia serves two psychodynamic purposes. It upholds the narcissist's grandiosity and his inflated self-image on the one hand, and on the other hand, it fends off intimacy, which he dreads.
At Palantir, we are on the side of working-class Americans. We support people who go to the military, we save their lives, we bring them home safer. Our AI actually makes workers more wealthy, more valuable, and the 10 to 15 million people that love me despite what's written, half of them made a lot of money on us. And you know what they're like? They're like people like me who think, you know what, we have to do better. Of course we have to do better. Something really bad is going to happen to you and your friends and your cousins and your bank account and your mistress and whoever was involved. You need to stand up, and those people need to be scared. And that's why this conference is so important. You need to wake up scared and go to bed scared. And safe means that the other person is scared. That's how you make someone safe. The enemies are scared, and Americans go back to enjoying the fact that we're the only one with a real tech scene in this country, and we're going to win everything.
Being the target of relentless, ubiquitous, and unjust persecution proves to the paranoid narcissist how important and feared he is.
The lines of cocaine and away from these short sellers who are going short on a truly great American company, not just ours, but it just love pulling down great American companies so that they can pay for their coke. And the best thing that could happen to them is we will lead their coke dealers to their homes after they can't pay their bills.
Unmanned drone swarms, autonomous combat systems, algorithm-driven decisions. The era of software warfare is here. Alex Karp, the Technological Republic. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I thought it would be a worthwhile endeavor to take a brief peek into the mind of a maniac, Alex Karp, who presides over Palantir, a CIA-seeded global surveillance company that is used to target and kill people, whose software is increasingly being adopted by countries and companies around the world and our own government. Karp is an odd figure for Silicon Valley CEOs. He is an intense and paranoid man who harbors very deep-seated fears and insecurities. He has described himself as a socialist with progressive and democratic values, and who tries to portray himself as a philosopher king. I'm going to go over a few excerpts from a book on the rise of Karp and Palantir about how Karp was made the CEO of Palantir. Karp and Thiel met and befriended one another in law school at Stanford, but had a brief falling out. Once Karp returned to the Bay Area, they reconnected. Karp at one point invited Peter Thiel to a meeting of major donors of the Jewish Philanthropy Partnership. He thought it would be a good idea to mix it up and have one non-Jewish person in the mix, Thiel recalled. Alex had this crazy theory that it would be a better way for them all to be nicer to each other. They'd get way more done. It became clear to Thiel that Karp had a terrific sense for people and was incredibly tenacious. While working his day job, Karp began raising money for Thiel's Clarium Capital. A few months later, Thiel asked Karp to join Palantir. He believed Karp could help market the company to potential customers and investors and provide some adult supervision until they hired a CEO. Thiel's initial inclination was that Palantir would need a Washington insider or a former military officer at the helm. He thought Palantir would be a hard sell, gee, I wonder why, and that he would need to have somebody who had strong connections to the national security community. Several people were interviewed, but none seemed to be a good fit. So Cohen, Lonsdale, and Gettings began to think that perhaps Karp was the right choice. Like Thiel, they were struck by his moxie, but they also saw something else in Karp. Although he didn't conceive of the idea of Palantir, he spoke about it with the conviction of a true believer and exuded a spirit of entrepreneurship. Alex was a founder. You could feel it, said Cohen. The other people weren't. In addition to his advanced age, he was, I believe, 34 at the time, Karp lacked the baseline qualifications for the job. He had no managerial experience and no background in technology, but he was in other ways the ideal CEO for a company whose work was bound to arouse suspicion. He seemed genuinely passionate about privacy protection and could talk about issues related to civil liberties with a fluency that was rare in tech circles. It helped that he came out of academia rather than the military or the intelligence community. Having a trained philosopher at the company's helm signaled that Palantir took seriously ethical and moral concerns that its work raised. It helped, too, that Karp was a self-described leftist. His political leanings would become a kind of shield for Palantir, especially when Thiel began moving even farther to the right. So one of the reasons that Karp was so appealing was his paranoia, was the fact that he was a deeply suspicious man.
And we also provide privacy protection so that you only see the data you're allowed to see. Now this sounds like an incredibly boring problem, but actually it's the core issue you have if you want to do things like prevent cyber attacks, enforce civil liberties, enforce standards of privacy on data, or when some of our work actually stop terror attacks.
DNA, though, of Palantir is tied to PayPal. One of your co-founders is Peter Thiel. Can you talk about the beginning of the company, how you were able to grow this product from something that was created in PayPal?
An adaptive enemy or an adaptive opponent. So having the human mind apply its own version of algorithms to data. And that actually was very, very powerful in reducing fraud. Productize the ability to integrate the data and productize the ability, but integrate the data meaning any kind of data, not just simple structured data. And that took us 3 years and a very, very strong engineering team.
When we began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago, hopefully I'm annoying you as much as 10 years ago, or more, when I made you know this, every decision Palantir made, FDAs, going public, building products, enterprise, large data sets, going to government, acknowledging American superiority, being pro-meritocracy, launching an AI platform, calling into question that AI models would actually be able to perform without orchestration. Every single one, our ontology, every single one of those was viewed as stupid.
This provocative behavior is what we call projective identification. The paranoid delusions of the narcissists are always grandiose, cosmic or historical. His pursuers and persecutors are always influential and formidable. They are after his unique possessions, or they are out to exploit his expertise in special traits, or occult knowledge, or they are there to force him to abstain and refrain from certain actions which endanger them.
You were very defensive, for instance, around short sellers. Michael Burry putting the short on this weekend. Some people were wondering if
by
you
the
were
way,
too defensive.
what I was defensive about, not defensive, I would say offensive about. I don't like short sellers. And you know, everyone's like, oh, it's price discovery, great. That's like saying you're a lawyer. You don't have to defend the pedophile. You know, yeah, I'm all in favor of everyone having a defense. I'm in favor of civil rights and defense for the innocent and of the guilty, because that's how you have civil liberties. If you're a lawyer, you don't have to work for a terrorist. You don't have to work for a pedophile. If you're a short seller, you do not have to actually short a truly great company.
Now, regarding his brief stint as an investor, Karp had no interest in spending his career in finance, and he didn't aspire to be a superstar hedge fund manager. He later claimed his goal while working as an investor was to amass a $250,000 nest egg, after which he planned to settle in Berlin and live as a highbrow dilettante, reading and writing and enjoying various forms of debauchery, as he put it. Given his determination to compensate for what he saw as the professional shortcomings of his parents and to never experience economic hardship again, it is difficult to imagine he would have been content with such a bohemian existence. It is possible the Berlin story was just a form of self-mythologizing, a way of underscoring how improbable his success with Palantir was. To give you an idea of his mindset, in Karp's opinion, the health of a society was commensurate with its tolerance of Care Bear overachievement. He believed most white Christian Americans were disposed favorably to Care Bears, who he believed had made themselves an in-group. Karp surmised that the people trying to enter the United States were now probably more hostile towards Care Bears, or at least not as friendly, which in his mind was all the more reason to secure the border and keep them out. Karp, when he speaks with a total conviction in what he's saying, which is what makes him such a good and effective salesman. When he says something, he is able to make himself believe that what he's saying is absolutely the truth, so that when people listen to him, they think, wow, he's so confident, he must know what he's talking about. It's very similar to Steve Jobs' reality distortion field. During student protests for Palestine, Karp took to Twitter to announce Palantir was creating 180 positions for, quote, students who, because of anti-Care Bearism, fear for their safety on college campuses and need to seek refuge outside traditional establishments of higher education. The statement went on to condemn bigotry and anti-Care Bearism. His biographer was with him that morning. He had told him a few minutes ahead of time he was about to make some headlines. Keep an eye on X, he said. When the statement went live, he was ecstatic. He clearly found pleasure in piling on the Harvards and Penns and putting Palantir at the center of this particular news cycle. He acknowledged the effort, dubbed Operation Safe Haven, was possibly illegal. Presumably, one had to be a Care Bear to apply, but it was against the law to discriminate on the basis of race, religion, or ethnicity. My lawyers are having heart attacks, he said, with a self-satisfied grin.
People like laud the Nazis. Like, I spent a lot of time talking to Nazis, like real Nazis, and like understanding what made them tick and what made them
I mean, part of the crazy thing about people, a lot of the Nazis nowadays, is there's not a single Nazi that would ever have included them in their movement and would have shipped them off to the camps quicker maybe than they shipped me off to the camps. By the way, not just in ICE, I see that this with our work with clandestine services. I mean, our product is used on occasion to kill people.
This is drone targeting, or what is this?
Targeting of all kinds. If you're looking for a terrorist in the world now, you're probably using our government product, and you're probably doing the operation that actually takes out the person in another product we build.
Karp, of course, is half Care Bear, half black. He believed all problems on college campuses stemmed from DEI. He said Care Bears stood as inconvenient evidence to the contrary of DEI, that the Care Bears had started out below everyone in America and were now arguably the most successful group in America. He claimed that DEI was the precursor to anti-Care Bearism, and it needed to be dismantled. He added that the self-made success of American Care Bears was the reason for the rift between the Care Bears and the blacks. Blacks, in his view, resented and envied the Care Bears. He insisted he was aligned with blacks as well as with Care Bears. The difference, he said, was that the Care Bears know it. He suggested the fight against anti-Care Bearism helped blacks too, saying, if you want a strong black community, you fight anti-Care Bearism. And from an article on Karp, quote, what is remembered is a more than ambivalent picture of Alex Karp. His parents, a Care Bear professor and a black photographer, you learn, were hippies who dragged him to demos early on. Also, that after graduating in law from Frankfurt, he went to the Sigmund Freud Institute at Goethe University and did his doctorate there with the social psychologist Carola Braid, is certainly just as unusual for a Silicon Valley billionaire as the commitment to be a neo-Marxist. On the other hand, he founded Palantir, of all places, with Peter Thiel, the Trump supporter and a right-wing liberal co-founder of PayPal, who also likes to grant fallen right-wing populists like Sebastian Kurz business shelter. Also striking is Karp's proximity to the Springer Group, on whose supervisory board he sits and at whose events he is a welcome guest. Not to mention that his Gotham surveillance software is the wet dream of all the autocrats in the world whose use the Federal Constitutional Court stopped. I still can't believe I haven't been shot and pushed out a window, Karp told me. This is the paranoid delusions of grandeur, right? We were in Palantir's New York office, located in the meatpacking district. He wasn't being literal, despite the office's bulletproof windows and the bodyguards hovering nearby. Rather, he meant the feeling of inevitable doom that has plagued him since childhood. Karp grew up in the Philadelphia area. His parents are Dr. Robert Karp, a clinical pediatrician, and Leah Janes Karp, an artist. His father is a Care Bear. His mother is black. Karp has a brother and 2 step-siblings. He told me his parents were hippies and that he spent a lot of time as a kid at political protests. He intuited from a young age that his background made him vulnerable. He said, "You're a racially amorphous, far-left Care Bear kid who's also dyslexic. Would you not come up with the idea that you're crap?" Although he was now the head of a major corporation, neither time nor success has diminished his anxiety. If the far right came to power, he said, he would certainly be among its victims. Who's the first person who is going to get hung? You make a list and I will show you who they get first. It's me. There's not a box I don't check. His fear, he said, propels a lot of the decisions for this company. I would say these fears are pathological in nature.
The narcissist feels that he is at the center of intrigues and conspiracies of colossal worldwide magnitudes. Alternatively, the narcissist feels victimized by mediocre bureaucrats and intellectual dwarfs who consistently fail to appreciate his outstanding, really his unparalleled talents, skills, and accomplishments.
In an earlier aside, Karp also mused about his traditional animosity toward some venture capitalists. I historically have been one that would rage against Silicon Valley venture people, Karp said, and I had all sorts of fantasies of using drone-enabled technology to exact revenge, especially targeted in violation of all norms. This is not a normal man. What's critical to understanding Karp is the sense of vulnerability that stalks him, Steinberger, his biographer, said. He's a biracial Care Bear and severely dyslexic, and he says he understood from an early age that he had what he saw as some strikes against him. You could say that Palantir exists to make the world safer for Alex Karp. In a 2013 Forbes interview, Karp revealed his obsessive focus, saying, "The only time I'm not thinking about Palantir is when I'm swimming, practicing Qigong, or during sexual activity." And with the way that he said that, I'm going to venture to guess that he doesn't engage in sexual activity very frequently. This sounds like something an asexual individual would say. A lifelong bachelor, he has never been married, he has no children. Karp maintains concurrent, long-term relationships with 2 women. A colleague describes him as geographically monogamous. He has never learned to drive, but he skis 12 to 15 miles daily, owns multiple homes chosen for proximity to cross-country trails. At Palantir's headquarters in Denver, which Karp calls the Schmetz Factory, Yiddish for cheap clothing, he regularly wears gear from an elite Norwegian ski team he has no connection to. We was Nordics and shit. At home, he puts his phone in a Faraday cage to block signals. The Chinese would be crazy not to try to listen to my calls, he told Steinberger of Palantir's intelligence work. Karp loves to talk about how Palantir was designed to help protect data and civil liberties while still combating terrorism, and that they're the only company that does this. And yet, in the early 2010s, it was revealed that Palantir was involved in a campaign to discredit WikiLeaks alongside other private intelligence companies, from Jacob Silverman. Here's a potted history of Team Thesis, the private intelligence contractor partnership with an assist from the DOJ that worked to discredit WikiLeaks supporters and undermine the organization itself. In many ways, Themis prefigured Black Cube-style dirty tricks that were yet to come. I don't think we have quite reckoned with what Themis wrought, both for some of the people mentioned here and for the larger, ongoing public-private campaign to suppress activism and political agitation. What might be most disturbing about the Themis operation is that it was likely one of many. We know about it thanks in part to the efforts of Barrett Brown. In late 2010, a group of intelligence contractors, Palantir, HB Gary Federal, Endgame Systems, and Barrico Technologies began working together under the aegis of what they called Team Themis. They were hired by the law firm Hunton & Williams on behalf of Bank of America and the Chamber of Commerce to undermine WikiLeaks and labor unions, respectively. Team Themis would investigate critics' families, compile dossiers, hack online infrastructure, and launch information warfare operations. It was going to be a secretive campaign, potentially illegal and very expensive. Team Themis asked for an initial $200,000 a month, later to be bumped up to $2 million when the operation was running at full intensity. In a December 2010 exchange about attacking WikiLeaks, Matthew Steckman, a Palantir employee, sent HB Gary Federal CEO Aaron Barr a list of suggestions based on staple counterintelligence tactics used to undermine radical groups from 1960s Berkeley to the anti-colonial struggle in Nigeria. Only the technologies had changed. Feed the fuel between the feuding groups. Disinformation, create messages and actions to sabotage or discredit the opposing organization, submit fake documents, and then call out the error. Create concern over the security of the infrastructure. Create exposure stories. If the process is believed to not be secure, they are done. Search for leaks. Use social media to profile and identify risky behavior of employees. Barr followed up with his own ideas. Attack their funding sources and generate friction among Julian Assange's followers. Their exchange was later incorporated into a pitch deck trying to sell their strategy. In a subsequent email, Aaron Barr emphasized the need to highlight people like Glenn Greenwald and other prominent supporters. These are established professionals that have a liberal bent, Barr wrote, but ultimately, most of them, if pushed, will choose professional preservation over cause. He didn't specify how they would be pushed, but one can imagine. Ultimately, there was little political attention paid to the core revelation, the growing union between large corporations, private intelligence contractors, and government intelligence agencies to undermine civil society, boost big business, surveil innocent people, and expand the power of the security state. Karp felt the need to maintain his good guy image in the wake of the scandal. He personally apologized for Palantir's role in the WikiLeaks Team Themis scandal and pledged support of progressive values and causes. I didn't sign up for the government to know when I smoke a joint or have an affair, he said. In a company address, he stated, "We have to find places that we protect away from government so that we can all be the unique and interesting and, in my case, somewhat deviant people we'd like to be." When the whole world is using Palantir, they can still not like us. They'll have no choice. Karp. When you listen to him in interviews, Karp's tone is often combative, defensive, self-glorifying, and doom-oriented. He displays Machiavellian traits. He uses manipulation as a strategic tool, sees relationships in terms of utility, like what do I benefit from this person, prioritizes winning control or gaining an advantage over having things like ethics. He is highly calculating and very good at reading others' weaknesses, and he often presents a polished and charming exterior when it serves his goals. He has paranoid traits. He has a chronic suspicion of the motives of others. Now, I have to admit, I too have a lot of paranoid traits myself, just saying. Nothing wrong with a little paranoia. But he has a chronic suspicion of the motives of others, believing others are plotting or betraying or undermining, and interprets neutral events as hostile, quickly identifying enemies or disloyal actors and maintaining tight control over information and surveillance. He has narcissistic traits like a belief in one's own self-importance, a strong need for validation and admiration, an oversensitivity to criticism or just feedback in general that isn't perceived to be positive, often reacting with anger or blame, a belief in being exceptional and above the rules, which is what he views Palantir as being, and of course himself, viewing others as an extension of yourself rather than as independent and autonomous people, having an inflated ego and fragile self-esteem. He has an obsession with dominating and punishing his enemies. It's pretty clear he is driven by a desire to inflict revenge on the many, many people who made him feel uncool.
I don't think in win-lose. I think in domination. So I don't like this win-lose thing because it kind of presupposes okay to lose. And when I used to do a lot of therapy for people, largely in the beginning, to explain to engineers why their social life wasn't as good as their IQ. And this is not even like me making it up. It's completely true. It's like, yes, I know you have 180 IQ. I know they should like you more, but they don't.
It just is super triggering because these people, they could pick on any company in the world. They have to pick on the one that actually helps people, that actually has made money for the average person, that is actually supporting our war fighters. Why do they have to go after us? And I'll tell you what, though, it's crazy motivating, because I'll tell you why the short sellers are constantly getting screwed by Palantir. Because every time they short us, we just are like tripling down on getting the better numbers, and part, honestly, to make them poorer.
He's a manipulative, control-oriented individual who craves admiration, expects loyalty, sees threats everywhere. Professor Sam Vaknin on the paranoid schizo narcissist. If we have a grandiose narcissist who is coerced to establish a shared fantasy in order to obtain supply from other people, but at the same time, he is also a schizoid. He has schizoid personality disorder. This kind of narcissist will have an interminable, enduring internal conflict, a dissonance that they can never resolve, and they're likely to react with animosity, with contempt, with hostility. They are likely to try to disengage from people. In other words, they become approach avoidant. They approach people. That's the narcissistic part. Theodore Millen and Roger Davis summed this up in their Personality Disorders in Modern Life from 2000. Quote, where withdrawal has an arrogant or oppositional quality, fantasy in a schizoid-like person sometimes betrays the presence of a secret, grandiose self that longs for respect and recognition, while offsetting fears that the person is really an iconoclastic freak. These individuals combine aspects of the compensating narcissist with the autistic isolation of the schizoid, while lacking the asocial and anhedonic qualities of the pure prototype, unquote. Both the narcissist and the schizoid are examples of arrested development due to envy and other transformations of aggression. Consider pathological narcissism. Envy is the hallmark of narcissism and the prime source of what is known as narcissistic rage. The schizoid, self-fragmented, weak, primitive, is intimately connected with narcissism through envy. Narcissists prefer to destroy themselves and to deny themselves rather than endure someone else's happiness, wholeness, and triumph. I believe Karp is driven by envy of and rage towards people he views as more normal than himself due to his identity issues that stem from being biracial and feeling like a constant outsider, and his insecurities from being dyslexic. I sense that he has a lot of shame, and that this causes him to lash out at people he perceives to be his enemies. He is suspicious of everyone, paranoid that something horrible will happen to him if he's not in control, if his perceived enemies come to power. He is a man who, due to his numerous neuroses, shouldn't be allowed anywhere near power. What this boils down to basically is the fact that he was always considered a Care Bear by the blacks, and the Care Bears always considered him to be black. So he didn't fit in with the blacks because they perceived him to be a Care Bear, and he didn't fit in with the Care Bears because they perceive him to be black. That is, that's really what's going on here. That is a lot of what drives his personality and his behaviors, is the paranoia that comes from feeling like you don't fit in anywhere. And then because of his neurotic attributes, the fear that something bad is going to happen to him, that there's people plotting against him, because of course he's so important, that if certain people like the far right ever come to power, he is going to hang. Like, it's just irrational, it's insane, it's bizarre, and I think it is kind of revealing in a sense of why does he think that might be? Could this be potentially some of the guilt that he feels because of what he knows he's doing that is wrong? And he uses this, it's because I'm a black Care Bear, that's why they would come after me, that's why something bad might happen to me, as a smokescreen for what their real concern is. And I thought it was just as interesting when Thiel was asked about Mangione in the wake of the United Healthcare CEO clipping, and he started stuttering and sweating and being really weird and wouldn't answer the question. Like this was something that was a great concern for him, that, gee, something like that might happen to me. It was clear that he hadn't really thought of that before, hadn't really considered it before. So I just find it very interesting looking into the minds of these people. But I'm interested to know what you guys think, and I hope you all have a good day. Whee!
You know what I actually have grown to appreciate about capitalism? All the people who made the right decisions went broke, are going out of business, or now have to copy us. Microsoft launched Ontology. Everyone wants to do FDEs. Everyone basically copies me and Palantir by putting me on there and knowing all the crazy shit I was going to say, and you're going to have to sit there and listen to it. And you did it. And again, and we're both absorbing the full risk of each other's splendor.